Cool. Can y'all hear me?
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, what's going on, Chris? How you doing?
I'm doing well, Justin. How are you and Tracey doing out there?
Great.
You know, it's a little chilly here in California. I don't know if you can tell. But other than that, we're doing okay. You know, we're surviving out here. It's probably.
I mean, as you can see behind us, it's torture where we're at.
Yeah, we're probably like in the 60s today. So we're struggling through it, man. How about you?
We're doing okay. We've hit our cold streak. We were in the 60s last week, but it started to get very cold. It snowed this week in Louisville, so the winter is definitely setting in.
Well, cheers to you, and thanks for being here with us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And so we're here at Kendall-Jackson Wine Estates and Gardens in Sonoma County, California. And right behind us is the garden. We have about 3.5 acres of garden there. Tucker Taylor's our master gardener, and he grows all kinds of amazing organic vegetables. We got our eggs set up here. We got it all fired up. We're looking good. They came in and rehabbed all our eggs because we've been cooking hard on them for a few years and beat them up. And they even brought us some new stuff to play around with. So we're super stoked on that. You know, the eggs come a long way in the past few years with all the new stuff. And we got these cool tables here we're stoked on. And, you know, always happy to be cooking with our favorite meats from Snake River Farms. And, you know, we're fortunate because they sent us the gold cut today. And we're going to do some prime ribs. So Tracey's going to pull that out. But can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, man?
Absolutely, my friend. My name is Chris Sussman, otherwise known as the Barbecue Buddha. I live in Louisville, Kentucky. And I run a blog, a website. I've got a book that's coming out in April 2021. So I'm a published author. I'm about to be a published author. And I do cooking and recipe development for Big Green Egg, Snake River Farms, Lobster Anywhere, and a slew of other people online. So that's essentially what I do. And my base camp is from Louisville, Kentucky, as I said earlier, but I'm originally from the Washington, D.C. area, and that's where I grew up.
Nice. Right on. Well, this is nice looking kitchen you got there.
Yeah, I have my wife to thank for that. You know, I'm always watching the Food Network, and she's always watching HGTV. So when we had a chance to redo our kitchen, I figured I would let her have at it. So
nice. I like those tiles. That looks great.
Yeah, it's a nice backsplash for sure.
Right on. Well,
I won the debate. I wanted to go with the black grout, and she wanted to go with white. So she met me in the middle. We went with gray. But again, that's for all you HGTV people. You know, not the.
Well, you know, gray seems to be the cool color in kitchens right now. Everybody I know that's redone their kitchen last year has some cool gray. So. Good for you, man. Looks good. Looks like a fun place to cook. Maybe next time we're out there, we'll have to come by and bring some wine and cook dinner with you.
I think we need to find a way to get Kendall-Jackson involved with the Kentucky Derby somehow. Everybody else has figured out how to get here that time of year. Figured we'll get you, Snake River Farms, Big Green Egg out here, and we'll do a big thing. And my house will be the jumping off point for sure.
Right on. Sounds like a party.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. So I guess we better get rolling. So we thought we had this all dialed in on the time today, but I tried your reverse sear method. I did a cook yesterday, and it came out perfect. Today, I think I screwed up the time a little bit, so I'm pushing it over here right now. I got one cut. Tracey, you want to show this cut? Yeah. We got Snake River sent us a 9-pound boneless ribeye, and this is their gold. This is like the top of the top. It looked amazing. And we put it on about, what time did it go on? 2 o'clock?
2 o'clock our time?
2 o'clock. Unfortunately, I had to run and drop my daughter off at tennis, and I let the temperature drop a little bit low. So I'm trying to make some recovery right now. So we'll pull it off at the end. But in the meantime, we're going to open this one up. We're going to slice a steak off here. Tracey's going to show us how to cook high temp. And that's the great thing about these Big Green Eggs is you can cook low temp, you can cook high temp, you can make pizzas, you can throw a brisket in overnight. Just, you know, the timing can be tricky sometimes, you know, especially in the beginning. And I'm sure, you know, looking at your Instagram page, I probably needed you over here today. But we're doing our best.
Well, the next time you talk to Bob and Big Green Egg, make sure that they get you this thing called the Egg Genius, which would solve the problem that you had today. It's a little fan that connects to the intake vent of your Big Green Egg, and then it has a temperature probe that goes into the meat and then into the grilling surface. And you can monitor it with your phone and control it from your phone. So you could tell it, to dial it up to 350, and it'll tell you what your meat is. And you could do that all from your daughter's tennis. Did you say tennis or golf?
Yeah, I could. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so you definitely need one of those.
Cool. Well, we'll add it to the list. But they style us out right now. I think one of the coolest things that, since we bought this thing that has changed is they have this half moon plate now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really cool. I mean, this is a total game changer in my mind, because now you can cook high temp and low temp on the same egg. So right now I got that rib over it to kind of diffuse that heat. And the other side of the grill, I could sear a steak or sear a piece of chicken or cook my vegetables. So you can be cooking high and a lower temperature at the same time, which is super cool. And they also made it, really easy to drop in and out. And we never had any of this stuff before.
Yeah, and the fact that you can this can be inside, and it's what they call it, a riser, right?
Yeah, you can flip it over or cook low.
Higher or lower, so you can have more more directly in the coals or higher up. And it's really, really opens up your options of all the things that you can cook on the green egg.
Yeah, it is. That this year is one of the best add-ons that Big Green Egg came out with, and certainly my favorite tool. The whole contraption is called the Egg Expander because it expands all of your possibilities to cook on it. And like you were saying, Tracey, is that you could grill above the felt line. So usually when the grilling grate is in the Big Green Egg, normally it's about 6 inches below the felt line or the top of the bottom part of the egg. But with the expander, you can have that grilling surface a little higher. So you can have direct heat cooks, but a little further away from the flame. So you have more control over fat dripping and flare ups and things like that. And Justin, just as you said, I mean, the best thing about that is you get the half moon insert. Now you have a true two zone grilling environment. So you can reverse sear, you can move things around as you're cooking, because, cooking on a Big Green Egg or cooking in general, it's the art of cooking, and there isn't a hard way to do it on the hot side or the cooler side. It's sort of being in that moment and being able to move it through the various zones of the heat that you're controlling in the Big Green Egg, and that dials it in. And then you may not have it, and if you don't, ask Bob to get it for you. But the expander has a top shelf. So when you're really cooking for a lot of people, or you're cooking a lot of things such as side dishes and vegetables, you can have your meats on one level, you can have your vegetables on another, or some people do the chicken on top and the vegetables below, so the chicken drippings get all over the vegetables. It's a really neat addition to the Big Green Egg lineup this year.
Yeah, it's really clean and very easy. I mean, before we were making that stuff kind of happen, but we were just making it happen. We were, stacking some bricks on there and grabbing some racks from the kitchen and building our own. And, it was a little sketch sometimes, but now it's just so easy. And I love the way the shelf slides out. And Bob was telling me the other day that they have a pastry chef who will, be cooking steaks and cook a chocolate cake on top at the same time. And so, I think these new things have just opened up how you can really prepare a whole meal at one time, and it's really, really cool. We're super excited.
Well, my favorite thing that Bob, we keep on talking about Bob, but he taught us so much in the past week. He did his turkey, right? Wasn't he talking about his turkey on there? He did a spatchcock turkey, which is when you take the backbone out. So the spatchcock chicken is really popular right now, and he did that for Thanksgiving. You take the whole backbone out, so it's kind of opened, like an opened up piece of, or opened up chicken, and put the whole thing on there. And he showed us a picture, and it looked gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous on there. And he said he just put it in there and essentially walked away. So
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And then, you all are truly blessed with that ability to have the garden behind you. I wish I had access to organic vegetables like that. I would probably be making a lot more pumpkin grit type of dishes like the one I made earlier tonight.
We're going to show you a dish from that's with some vegetables from our garden. It's also a dish from Justin and I are also co-authors of a cookbook. So we're in that same club with you, Chris. And so we're going to in a little bit show you one of the dishes from the cookbook too, which is going to highlight some of the vegetables from the garden behind us and just be a great side dish for steak.
Well, for anybody, since we're on the subject, I have the book here. You all were kind enough to send this to me with the wine. It's called Season. It's one of the neatest cookbooks I have. It breaks it down by season. It's aptly named. So it pairs wine with the vegetables, with the proteins for each season. It's an amazing book. And I was really proud to have been able to cook one of your dishes tonight in advance of this barbecue class that we're doing. So
thanks, man. We appreciate that, and thanks for doing it. The cool thing for us about that book is Tucker, our gardener, actually grew all the vegetables for the book. And, you know, one, you don't see that very often, but two, he's also a really good photographer. So some of the photography in the book is from Tucker's iPhone too, which is really cool. And then another good friend of ours, Alan Campbell, did the rest of the photography. And we were fortunate, we won in 2019 from the IACP, which is the International Association of Culinary Professionals. They do cookbook awards, and we won Book of the Year and Chef of the Year, which was really cool in 2019. Yeah. And I don't even know if they did it in 2020. So I think maybe we're still going
to ride that wave.
Yeah. Well, maybe the Barbecue Buddha. Maybe I could become the 2021 recipient, and we could do a book tour together. So
definitely.
So we sent you a couple bottles of wine too. You got you got some Chardonnay, and obviously that's what we're known for. We've had that. You know, our VR Chardonnay has been the #1 selling Chardonnay for I don't know what 28 years, something like that. Yeah, 28 so that's what we're known for, but we also have all these amazing single vineyard wines. It's almost like a cult wine club within a winery, but all of our wine club members have access to these amazing wines, and a lot of them we sell mostly tasting room direct. So I think you got a bottle of the Hawkeye Cab, and that's one of our favorites, especially when we got some nice richness, some nice fat and marbling from a beautiful steak. So hopefully you got a glass of that you can slice up with some Snake River next time you're cooking there.
Well, and cheers.
Yeah,
I was joining us today.
Yeah, I was. Cheers to everybody. I'm drinking the Chardonnay because that was the pairing with the pumpkin grits that I made earlier tonight, which is beautiful. And this Chardonnay, I could see why this has put you on the map. It's the notes of green apple, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful wine. And even though it's cold here, who cares? I love drinking white wine. This is a delicious white wine. So.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing about Chardonnay is it has the body and richness that you can pair it with a steak. I mean, Cabernet is definitely the classic, really, a nice rich steak. It really helps smooth out those tannins, especially on a young Cabernet. And steak and cab's the classic pairing, but Chardonnay is also a fun one too, especially for the folks that like white wine, and a nice rich Chardonnay can hold up to a piece of steak. Yeah. Tracey, you want to talk about, so Snake River Farms, definitely one of our favorite companies. Honestly, I've been using this meat, I've been here 17 years, and we started using it probably 3 years before that. I was at a little restaurant called Syrah. And the prices have changed a little bit since we first put it on the menu, but it's consistent. They're an amazing company. Yeah. It's an amazing product. And if you want to slice that open, this is the gold level. They have silver and gold are the two. Is that right,
black? It's black and gold.
Black and gold.
And so all of the Snake River Farm line is high on the BMS scale. The black is, I think, 6 to 8, 6, 7, 8 in the BMS scale. The beef marbling system, as designated in Japan. And then the gold is at a 9 or a 10. So it really holds up well. All of their cuts on the Snake River Farms American Wagyu line are above prime. So anything you could get, whether it's black or gold, you're going to get an amazingly well marbled piece of meat. And what most people don't know, and I get this zinged all the time when I'm doing my social media stuff, is people go, that's not Wagyu. Well, it isn't Wagyu. It's American Wagyu, and it's distinctly American Wagyu. And the flavor that, because a lot of people have seen the Wagyu, but haven't eaten it. For those of us, I'm lucky enough to have eaten some A5 Wagyu in my time. And it eats so differently than an American steak. So the combination between the Japanese bull and the American, the cow, makes a steak that eats like an American steak, but it is so well marbled and beautifully tasting. It is the best of both worlds.
I'm so glad you brought that up too, Chris, because it's not, I think that you're right that without people knowing that, they think you're just that it's kind of trying to be an imposter of something else as opposed to just being a completely different product that's really just delicious.
Right. And it's one that I think American eaters are more used to. I mean, to be direct, most people don't know how to cook wagyu. Wagyu is so fatty, it is really difficult to cook. And even the best chefs in the world have a difficult time. I had the pleasure of being out in San Francisco at that restaurant, Searing, when they got their 3rd Michelin star, and watching, that's one of those restaurants where they have logs of fire, and all the people at the saute and at the grill stations take live coals, and they have fans in their back, and they wave to make the coals hotter, and they cook this steak very slow and delicately. People don't have time for that. You could cook a Snake River Farm steak just like an American steak, but it eats like an amazing piece of prime plus. So it's great.
Okay, I think we've tempted everybody enough now, right? We've talked about this steak so much. Not that you're all going to be able to taste it unless you go and buy it yourself, which I think you should. So I'm going to open up this this cut. So actually, real quick, while I'm opening this, prime rib is ribeye steak. So people know what the cut is. That when you get prime rib, it's a large piece of ribeye steak. So I think that sometimes people don't know that. And so you can, get a prime rib or a prime rib cut and then cut a steak from it like a ribeye, which is what I'm going to do from this one because I want to show you all how to sear a steak on this. So would you mind grabbing this container from me, Justin?
Yeah, and like Chris said, this is actually better than prime. So it's, better than prime rib.
Yeah, exactly.
The cut is better than prime. But, bone in, bone out, depends on what you like. The bone's kind of fun and a nice presentation. And some people are really, into the bone and the cooking of it. I don't know. You can go either way. For me, I like both.
I think it's just personal preference.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I think it's all personal preference. There's not one that's better or worse than the other, in my opinion. But yeah, I think it's personal preference. The bone is, when you cook a bone-in steak, it's gorgeous. That's for sure.
And
the presentation is beautiful. The presentation is beautiful. And then also it gives you the ultimate chef's bite, because before I'm serving everybody the prime rib that's waiting for me out in the dining room, I can gnaw on a bone a little bit before, if I separate the bone from the rest of the rack. So it's a great addition to my evening.
It is. But I mean, I'm not kicking this steak out of bed right here at all. This is this is making me happy right here. I'm not.
Steak in bed.
I know, steak in bed. Why not?
Right.
So I just want to, before I cut into this, I want to make sure you guys can see this right here on camera. Like, this is this beautiful marbling right here. That's what you want, right? You want this fat. And I have a chef that I used to work for that always said fat is flavor. Color and fat, both flavor. And in this case, it's, the fat on the steak. I mean, this is going to add flavor and texture, which I think that people maybe don't think about when they're eating food, and especially steak, but that texture that you're going to get from the fat is going to be awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a nice thick steak off of here.
I mean, think about it. When you're cooking steak with that much intermuscular fat, you're essentially braising it from the inside out, right? Because the fat is rendering and starting to melt down, and you're adding all that liquid and viscosity to the inside of the meat fibers. And it just ends up, if you know what you're doing on the big green egg, it just ends up being a world-class eating experience.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to...
Tracy's going to give you a close-up in the meat cam here. So.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful.
You got some good marbling there.
Back a little. Okay, right.
I wish I could stand in front of that and be like a weatherman and be like pointing to different things on the steak. Yeah. So how are you gonna season that? Are you going simple salt and pepper? Do you have
honestly, we don't even, half the time, it depends on what we're cooking, but when we're cooking meat this good, I don't put anything on it. We put a little olive oil just to hold the salt to it, and salt. Half the time we don't even use pepper. A lot of times we'll use a peppery vegetable. Like today we'll have a little arugula salad on the side. I mean, if you like pepper, you can definitely add it. When we're cooking high heat on the grill, a lot of times we don't add pepper before. We'll finish with pepper if we want it on the dish.
Yep.
That pepper gets a little bit of bitter kind of burnt flavor, which some people like and a lot of people are used to. But here at the winery, we use a lot of salt and a little bit of pepper. It's kind of, salt adds flavor. It helps the flavor come out of your food. Pepper just adds pepper flavor. So for us, when we're things with different wines, we don't just put pepper on everything. There's certain things where I have to have it on, like a tomato and an egg and, a few things like that. But for us, when we have this really nice Snake River Farms, half the time, it's more than half the time, probably 90% of the time, all we're putting on is salt. And I'll go to the table and they'll be like, oh my God, what did you put on the steak? And I say, salt. And that's what it's all about. It's about tasting this amazing flavor from the meat. Excuse the airplane, we're in the runway path. So if that comes across, that's what you're hearing there.
So I have a question that has come in from the mothership. Does Snake River Farms ship to all of the U.S. states? Yes, Snake River Farms does indeed ship to all of the U.S. states. Now, that there may be a caveat, and Mackenzie, if you're out there, you could text me if you're watching this. I'm not sure if they ship to Hawaii or Alaska because technically they are U.S. states, but my assumption is they do. But I know all the continental U.S. states they ship to. So there's our first question and answer segment.
And I would like to say, Chris, first of all, thank you. Was it Mackenzie that asked the question? Any questions out there? Don't wait till the end. Like, you can throw questions at us throughout this entire Zoom. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, send us a text, and we're happy to answer. If we don't know the answer, we'll make something up.
Yeah.
So.
And I think one thing that we should let everybody know that I believe we were supposed to hit off at the top is that this is helping all of us kick off this wonderful giveaway that we've all partnered with together to give away to some lucky recipient. It's a $4,000 gift package that has a gold grade Snake River Farms prime rib that you're cooking tonight. It has an amazing gift certificate from Kendall-Jackson. I don't believe you all could ship wine and a gift like that. So it's a gift certificate to buy wine. You've got Rydell glasses. You have a Big Green Egg grill and all the accessories that come with that in that package. And then you also have the Le Creuset, the Dutch oven. So you get this amazing package that I promoted earlier in the week, and all of my friends and network have been going crazy. So it's at snakeriverfarms.com/giveaway, I believe is the URL, but I know that you all are going to be putting it up. It's www.snakeriverfarms.com/giveaway. Go and put in your information. That is definitely for only the people in the continental United States, which I believe may include Alaska and Hawaii, but it is an amazing giveaway. And everybody should participate and send that around. It is beyond great.
If you've not signed up for this, I've told everybody that I know, because whoever wins this is winning. Oh my God, that's going to be an awesome Christmas. What an amazing prize this is. So.
And then let Chris say just a little, we love those. I don't know, maybe this one's probably 15 years old?
At least, and it's probably works better than
we realized, we do a lot of catering for the Jackson family wines and different properties, and we're moving platters around all the time, and we were burning. And I got tired of breaking stuff, so I was like, we're just going to put the food for our buffets and our, small dinners in Le Creuset. And the only thing this will break is your foot if you drop it on it. Otherwise, this you're passing down to your grandkids.
Well, but it's also cool because you cook in it and then you can just serve, right? So they're really cool looking, right? They're rustic. So you serve what you're cooking in too, and it holds the heat so well. So when you're cooking something in here, it's going to keep that, whatever that is, hot for a very longer than you have until it's gone.
And the other thing that a lot of people don't think of is it's a great thing when it's hot out to do it cold. So we'll put it in the freezer, and if we have a cold dish that's going out in the buffet, that's a really good tip that most people don't think of. You put your salad in here on a hot summer day and you're serving it outside. If you have this in your freezer or fridge, it's going to keep everything nice and chilled on your buffet too.
Definitely.
So, that's brilliant.
Okay, let's cook a steak, shall we?
All right, we should.
All right, so I've got my steak here. I want to make sure, maybe Jeffrey or Sean, one of my video guys, I'm going to season this. And so I just want to show you how I'm going to season this, because I don't want you to be shocked at the amount of salt that I put on it. I'm going to put just a tiny bit of oil. And really, the only reason I'm putting a little bit of oil is so it doesn't stick. Justin's going to oil for me. There's so much fat in this steak that it doesn't need much more than that, really. And I'm just going to rub that around with my hand.
Tracey, what type of oil are you using?
We've got our own Jackson family or Kendall-Jackson olive oil. So you can use olive oil. You can use a neutral oil. I mean, for this, like I said, it's more just to help the steak from not sticking to the grill. It's less about the flavor going on it. So I'm going to season the steak, and I don't want to shock everyone, but I like to say it's kind of like a nice snowfall, right? I mean, you can see the salt on that steak. but this is a really thick, this is, an inch cut that I did. And so I want to make sure that this steak is really well seasoned. I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. Do you mind oiling that other side for me, please?
Hopefully this is not on here today.
Right? Just a tiny bit. And then the same thing on the other side. Because if you wait until, chefs have different theories on this, but at least what I like with my steak, seasoning in it now, we'll often finish with a finishing salt like a Maldon salt or a gray salt, but putting that salt on now, it kind of permeates the steak while it's cooking as opposed to it being a surface flavor. So.
Right. It helps denature the meat and the protein so the meat retains the moisture and flavor.
Yeah. And like Justin said, so often we have people that are shocked. They're like, what did you put on that steak? It's just because we season it properly. And that's right. Seasoning it properly. I don't eat like this every night, right? I'm not eating this steak with this much salt every night. So is it great? This is a decadent thing going on. But if you're gonna cook a good steak like this, season it, like go all the way, season it the right way, cook it the right way,
And then another thing, when you're cooking, you're going to lose some salt on the grill.
Definitely.
Some of it's going to come off. Even when you saute in the pan, if you look at your pan at the end, a lot of the salt's in the pan.
Absolutely.
So,
right.
You got to be careful, but you can always add salt. You can't take it away, but it's definitely important to have really good flavors to season it in layers.
Well, for all the foodies out there, what does everybody get dinged on all those cooking shows all the time? Not seasoning properly, right? That's always a big thing. And then if you talk to people that work in the restaurant industry, they say the biggest thing between cooking food in a restaurant and cooking food at home is the amount of salt and fat that they use in cooking. So it's all salt and butter. So people are asking,
some cream thrown in there too.
People are asking, what temperature do you have the big green egg for this cook that you're doing right now?
So I'm right now at about 600.
Got it. So you're at 600.
Yep.
And you're going direct. You're not going to do a reverse here. You're just going to do it.
Camera, go right into it. So let me go and open this. So this is also a good time to talk about. And Chris,
will you tell them about burping?
Tell them about burping, please, because you can probably describe it better than I will.
People really, and you'll always notice a big green egg cook, even if they're not cooking on a big green egg, they'll open every oven or grill the same way, where they open it a couple of times before they open it all the way up. And the reason that is the egg-shaped design creates this natural convection inside there. So the air is really moving, swirling around. And as you're holding that air, especially if you have the top vent and the bottom vent controlled, so you're choking some of the air off to control the temperature, when you open that big lid, you're allowing this rush of oxygen to come in. And what will happen is it will then burp back fire onto you. A lot of people have lost their hair in their arms or their eyebrows. So the way to do it is to introduce oxygen into the environment a little bit slowly. So you burp it by opening and closing it very small, 1 to 2 inches a couple of times before you open the lid all the way. And that's why.
And Chris, will you just tell them real quick, just tell them basically how the egg works. It's basically about air movement and oxygen, and how you control the heat.
Right. So the very first thing that is far superior for this grilling environment than anything else that I've cooked on is what it's made out of. The ceramic is a special ceramic that allows you to retain the heat and the temperature inside, no matter if it's very low temp, like you're doing cold smoking or warm smoking or traditional barbecue. It could be 10 degrees below zero outside. It'll hold the temp inside. Same thing with high heat. The radiant heat, the ambient heat that ceramic does get you just a really a well heated environment to get you that high sear that you need. The other thing is you can do low and slow with the convector, which is that ceramic plate. You have the half moon, but they have this convector, which is a big full moon, a big circle that goes in there. And that acts as a deflecting shield between the heat and the grilling surface, essentially turning your big green egg into an oven. So you can roast, you could bake, you could do low and slow barbecue that way. And then you could go very high heat with things like the pizza stones. And now they have the big green egg carbon wok that you could put in there. You could fry, you do stir fry. So, the versatility and the live fire environment that gives you that flavor, there's none other better. Now, the design being the egg shape, everybody's like, why is it an egg? Why is it an egg? It's a Japanese design. Kamado is the name of the oven or the ceramic grill type. Air comes in at the bottom. There's a vent on the bottom and it goes out at the top. And that egg shape, as it's pulling the air around, will swirl and bounce the air all the way around that big dome, creating a natural convection. So you have like really this one tool that just does it all. If I was a Lord of the Rings fan, it'd be like the one ring to rule them all, but it's like the one grill that just does it all.
All right,
Are you ready?
Let's see it in action,
I'm going to do
Trace.
some burping.
All right. Don't lose an eyebrow there, Tracy.
I'm going to try really hard not to.
Okay.
Arm hair,
Good job.
Right?
That's an expert burping session right there.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can see, right, I've got my colds have been going now. These have been going for a little over an hour. I don't know exactly what time it is, but I got these going at around between 3 and 3:30 our time. So that's the other cool thing about this is that, you can fill the coal. You decide how far you want to fill the coal. And then, it'll go for hours. Like we were talking about, you could do briskets on here. So I've got my grill nice and hot. I'm just going to go ahead and put my steak right on there.
Hey, Tracy, one quick question that's come in from the people out there. You talked about the finishing salt. Molten salt is an excellent choice for finishing salt. What salt did you use to season the steak before you put it on the grill?
Yeah, so we always use kosher salt. We like the diamond crystal because of the cut of the salt. All of our recipes are done with that, so we know that it's always going to be consistent, and it's what I use at home too. And maybe it's just because what I've always used, and so I have a salt bowl next to my stove, like most chefs, and so it's that feel, right? And so it's when you get the feel of salt, you know exactly how you're properly seasoning something. But kosher salt has just a better flavor than iodized salt. I think it's just got a better feel to it, and it.
I think it's right now probably the industry standard, and all of our recipes are calibrated for that brand. And sometimes if you use the Morton's, it's a little finer. Yeah. So the smaller the salt, the saltier the food. So anytime you're cooking, and I learned this, by cooking in other countries, lots of people use different salts, and the recipes can never be one-to-one when the size of the salt's different. So if you are using a small salt, just be careful. Use a little bit. You can always add more because your food can get really salty really fast.
Salt is like cheese, right? Like hot sauce. Like you can always add more, but you can't take it out. So
right. It is. And knowing the size and the variance of salt is very big, because 1 tablespoon of this type of salt versus another isn't equal weight. So So great.
Chris, what's your style when you're grilling a steak? You go open lid or you close the lid down for a ribeye?
I'll always close the lid because you're letting too much oxygen in. So if you have it up to 600 degrees and you open the lid, it's going to get way too hot. So you may overcook it. But now another thing that you could do, another tip that you could do is you could close that bottom vent when you're cooking with the lid open. That way you're not having too much oxygen coming in there. Remember, you have all the control with the big green egg, and that's great.
Hey, Sean, can you show this bottom vent right here? I know it's kind of a weird one, but.
So I'm going to open it all the way, and then you've got this, which is kind of your protection from any, right? So there's that. And then you can adjust this out however you want. So the more you open it, the more airflow you get. And it kind of does the same thing as that top control, right? It's just doing it from the bottom. So I'm going to close that.
It's basically the throttle.
I gave myself a lot of air going through there. So
it's your throttle for the grill. You open it wide open, it's going to get hot. So
I always think about the top and bottom vent as like a gas and a brake, right? You know how much air to put in and how much air to choke off, and that's how you get from point A to point B.
Yeah. So I am gonna close this in a second, but I want to, in a quick second, I want to flip the steak so you can see. But for me, ribeye and really any steak on the grill, I do not care about grill marks. I'm not looking for those beautiful hashtags. What I want is char, because again, we're talking about texture, right? I want that sear, because especially on a steak that's got great fat like this, when you've got that sear, when it gets crusty on the outside, the contrast of texture when you eat a bite of this is awesome. It's awesome because you get a little bit of like texture crunch from the outside, and then you get a little bit more of a softer texture because of the fat on the inside of the steak. I also like my steak rare, so it's going to make it a little bit more of a softer texture.
Yep. And then plus like what you...
So really quick, I just want to show, I'm going to get this on camera before I flip it.
Sean, can you?
Sean?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we can see that. Wow, that looks great, Tracy. Yeah, that looks awesome.
See that? That's what I'm talking about. Color, texture, that's what you want from your steak.
Well, just like you said earlier, fat is flavor. So is the surface when you grill it like that.
Yeah.
Grill marks are giving you flavor every other mark, right? But when you have crust on the entire outside of the steak, that's all flavor. That's all the Maillard reaction that you want from a great cook, a great steak. So yes, I'm a big fan of.
When you cook like that, it's like you're cooking in a cast iron pan, right? That you're getting that same, element of that crust, like you're in a cast iron pan, which to me, that's, when I'm cooking steak at home and it's really one steak and I'm not turning a grill on, I'm doing it in my cast iron pan.
Well, one thing I like when I'm cooking it, if you are looking for the grill marks, I start, say this is the grill, my hand's the grill. I start the steak this way, and usually for a ribeye, a regular size ribeye, just under 2 inches or whatever, I do 2 minutes. Then I flip it over this way 2 minutes. Then when I flip it over, I flip it this way 2 minutes and this way 2 minutes. And usually 8 minutes gets me to nice and rare. And then I think about that as opposed to flipping it. I feel like you get a little more even cooking. At least that's what I'm going with these days.
I love that. We have a couple of questions that have come in, so I'm going to nail them while you're doing that. If you need to interrupt to show what's going on, Tracey, just do that. So how often does the felt need to be replaced on a big green egg? So if you look at the top of the big green egg and the bottom of the big green egg, there are these felt gaskets that go around. They come out with it.
Chris.
Okay. So now they have a high heat gasket that lasts a lot longer. For people that follow me and know me, I cook on my big green eggs every day. I may have to change mine once a year, maybe. That's about it. I would think your normal, hey, I'm cooking on the weekends, kind of a big green egg owner. You're going to go 2 or 3 years before you have to change that. And it isn't as hard as everybody makes it out to be. It's actually a really easy task. My wife does it for me all the time. That's how easy it is. So she's in. Well, you do. You've changed the felt for me before. You're really good at it. So anyway, it is not about Mrs. Buddha. It's about me and the big green egg. The other question we have is, at what point of the cooking process do you add smoking chips? And they also tacked on no chunks for flavor. So here, this is a whole thing. And if you guys need to interrupt, but people are asking big green egg questions, so I'm going to answer them. So you're using lump charcoal, which is charcoalized wood. You get an automatic base level wood flavor with the lump charcoal that you use from big green egg and big green egg. It's not overpoweringly woody or wood flavor. It's just enough for things like steak, seafood, and chicken. If you want more wood flavor, if you're doing a hot and fast cook like the steaks you're doing now, that's when I would use smoking chips. So like pecan or oak, you put a handful of chips in with the charcoal right before you put the steak on. You get a blast of smoke flavor that gives a little bit of smoke on there, and you get it's what I call a kiss of smoke. The other thing is chunks. You use chunks of wood for longer cooks. So when you're doing brisket, pork shoulder, maybe chicken, because you want that wood to burn slowly and for the length of time for the cook. All the smoke flavor for barbecue comes in the first 3 hours of the cook. So you really are you don't want to load it up with chunks of wood. You want to just have 3 or 4 in there, baseball-sized chunks. And never, ever, 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 ever soak your wood. That's a misnomer, and it's a myth in the barbecue community. The only thing that smoking wood does is it causes your wood to burn at a lower temperature, which never releases the gases you need to infuse the wood flavor into your meat. And if you want to know more, get my book coming out in April 2021.
That was cheers to you, my friend. That was the perfect segue.
Thank you.
Real quick,
Thank you. It's almost like I had a teleprompter or something.
She's going to show us this steak here, so you can see it's got a nice char on it.
Right, so I had the lid closed while you were talking, and then I opened up the lid, and then I let it go. I'm letting it go just for about a minute with the lid open, so it gets that really nice char on the other side.
Yep, and you can see all the flames licking up there. That's the fat rendering from that incredibly well-marbled piece of Snake River Farm steak, and that's dripping on the coals. And that's where flavor comes from too. People don't know that, but when the fat melts from your protein and hits those charcoals, that smoke that comes back up and touches your meat is what gives it flavor. So you're doing an awesome job.
And I think I'm there. I mean, I'm happy. I'm really happy with the way that steak looks. So let me come over here. I'm just going to go right on that cutting board there. But Yeah, and then we're going to let the steak rest. And it's important to let the steak rest a few minutes before you dive right in. So what are you doing there, Justin? What do you need?
And a lot of times, like when I'm at my house at home, I actually like to let it rest on a platter.
At your house at home?
Yeah, at my house at home. I like to, is that one for this?
That's for that?
Well, he's worked so long at KJ, it feels like a second home to him.
Right.
So,
It
you
is.
know, his
This
house
is.
is
Home away
here.
from
What you do is, a nice green like watercress or arugula with that pepperiness. I like to just rest the steak right there and let it kind of wilt those greens as well. And it almost makes like a vinaigrette. I'll finish it with a little olive oil, but to me, radicchio, bitter, and arugula peppery. And we didn't put any pepper on that steak, but when we eat it with this arugula, we're going to get that natural pepper flavor there.
Yeah.
So,
and that's a great tie-in to drinking Chardonnay. I mean, that type of accompaniment on a steak, perfectly grilled steak, would pair nicely with the Chardonnay. Those greens, the radicchio, the fat of the steak.
Yeah.
So we're gonna cook a little bit of vegetables. So this is one of our. I'm gonna
You're gonna talk to them about Romanesco?
Yeah, this is.
So we're gonna go here and then we'll go right over here, camera wise.
So you're talking about Romanesco, which I believe is the money shot in your book, right? You can't see me, but I'm holding up your book. It's the first big picture in your book, and it is a beautiful vegetable.
Wait, do it like I'm holding the Romanesco.
That's right. There, that looks good.
Maybe you all should do. Maybe you all should do the running of the Romanesco.
Running of the Romanesco.
So we got the cauliflower Romanesco. Tucker grows this in the garden. To me, it looks like MC Escher created a vegetable. I mean, it's just got all these cool little nooks and crannies, and it's really fun. It's great to cook whole and present whole. So you could roast this in a pan on the big green egg. And it's really cool to take it to the table like that. For this recipe, we chopped it up a little bit, and we've got these beautiful florets on the egg in the Le Creuset.
So, you ready? Can we come back here?
Yep. Okay,
so I've got my Le Creuset that I had put on the grill when I put my steak on. I pulled it off because it was getting kind of hot. And so I'm just gonna hit this pan like this. This pan is hot. Imagine if you put it in a 500-degree oven. I mean, that's what I essentially did here. So I'm just gonna hit it with some olive oil. And then I'm going to roast my vegetables directly in it. Oh, and this is what Chris was talking about. This is that fell to edge that he was talking about, the question of the replacement. This right here. And this is made, I just learned this the other day. This is all natural. So the glue is all natural. So there's nothing in here that's going to be ever toxic to your food.
Oh, and Chris, that's one other thing that they were mentioning too, is you never want to use like lighter fluid or any chemical starters in your egg because it's porous. It can pick those flavors up.
Yep.
Yeah, and it will always then leave a negative taste flavor profile in your egg. You never want to do that. So when you really get into being an egghead and working with the big green egg, still to this day, those little speedy lighters that you get with your first big green egg, I'll use those. They're so simple. You put them in there, you set a timer for 10 minutes, you go back out there, your charcoal's lit. It could not be any easier. People are intimidated by it at times, and I'm here to tell you it's really super easy. As long as you light it correctly and you shake, you move that ash around so you don't have any of the air vents clogged up, you'll be fine cooking on these things, just like the two of you are.
Yeah, and it's funny, as a chef, I still say, there's part of me just as a human being that still every time I light a grill, like our big smoker grill, there's a tiny part of me that always gets a little bit nervous about it, right? You're playing with fire. And so even though that's part of what I do every day, it makes me a little bit nervous. And these are so easy to work with. I lit both of these grills today. And it doesn't make me, I have no fear at all around it. So
I did lose a little arm hair yesterday. I'm not going to lie. My arm.
Yeah, but that's a badge of honor. It happens to all of us. I was filming videos with Big Green Egg down in Atlanta last year, and we were doing videos for their brand new wok. And I did a rookie mistake. I didn't burp the egg before I opened it, and we were live rolling, with cameras, multi-shot, everything. And this thing shot a fireball. I lost half an eyebrow and all my. It was hilarious. And I know that all the guys and gals back at Big Green Egg have that video of me somewhere that they're waiting for the right time to put it out on social media. So
Well,
You two
hopefully
are
it's a
human.
Christmas present. But I think everybody that's, used a green egg has had a moment like that. I know when we first got ours, we had it at one of our wineries off-site, and I was with a famous chef from Texas. He was cooking out there for a charity thing we were doing. His name's Kent Rathburn. And we had fired the big green egg, and I'd only brought, a certain amount of charcoal. We were only cooking for like 10 people, right? But those people had too much fun in Napa Valley and drank too much wine and showed up to dinner like 3.5 hours late. And I had lit the grill, and and Kent was like, "Hey man, we need some more charcoal." And I was like, "Well, we're cooking for 10 people. That's all I brought." He's like, "Oh, go throw a couple logs on there." So I found some logs laying behind the building at the winery, and I put them on there. And I went over there, and he was probably 10 feet away. And I went, and I burped it a little bit, but not enough. I opened it up, and it shot a flame probably like 10 feet, burned all my arm hairs off, my eyebrow off one side. And he was just sitting there laughing at me so hard. Every time I see him, he still gives me a hard time about it.
It's a rite of passage. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's something you'll never forget the smell of burnt arm hair when you.
This is true.
It's better than going to get waxed. Not that I go get waxed, but if I did, I would definitely.
We can talk about that later off camera.
Right.
All
right. So
while this Romanesco is roasting, I just want to show you look at how beautifully that's roasting in the Lucerne.
Maybe hold it up. Can you see the color? We're getting some nice caramelization, some brown flavor. It almost gets a nutty flavor.
Yeah.
And I like cauliflower, but I think I like the Romanesco a little bit better than cauliflower. I feel like it's a little more subtle than cauliflower flavor, and it just looks cooler. It's just fun,
It's really pretty looking.
Yeah.
So I'm also going to grill some radicchio. So I've got some radicchio here, and those of you that have never played with or seen this in the grocery store and thought, well, this is beautiful. What do I do with it? This is great just tossed in salads because it's a bitter green. And so it gives it contrast, like Justin was talking about, when you have a peppery green and then you have a bitter next to it, it gives it this nice contrast of flavor. But I think both of our favorite way for having radicchio is if you cook it like this on the grill. So I have some that I've cut here. And when you cut it, you don't be afraid. You want to keep the core and you want to keep it in these wedges. And I'll show you, Justin's going to cut it right here so you can see. But what I did was cut these wedges. So here's your piece like that. So it stays together. And I've tossed it in some honey, balsamic vinegar, oil, and some salt. And so, the sweetness to counteract some of that bitterness. But when you get it on the grill, what happens is the sweetness, it caramelizes a little bit. So I'm just going to grill this, and this is going to happen pretty fast.
Hey, while you're doing that, can I answer a couple of questions that are coming in from folks out there? So first question was, is the steak that you pulled off, Tracey, resting on a hot plate or a cool plate? How are you resting your steak before you slice it?
Resting on just a room temperature plate.
Yeah, this is resting on a room temperature plate, but the plate's cold. But remember, I put all those greens underneath it, so the steak's not actually touching that cold plate. So it's almost like those greens are insulation. So these greens were from the garden, some arugula, and they weren't really cold when I put them on the plate. So we basically have insulation in between that cold plate. So you can put it on a warm plate, but if you're putting the greens down, you want the steak to wilt it, ideally, not the plate to wilt the greens.
Yeah, and then another good thing, what you did serendipitously is the greens are an uneven surface, so you're allowing oxygen to be on the bottom side of the steak. Whenever you're resting meat, I usually put it on a spoon or a baking rack, so there's air going underneath as well as on top. That way the crust that you formed while grilling doesn't get soggy or you don't lose all that hard work.
Yeah, the rack is definitely in the chef world. Everything gets rested on a rack because you can let those juices drip, and you don't lose your crust that you worked so hard to build up.
Right. All right.
Chris, can I just really quick, because I've got it happening here. I
absolutely.
just want to also show that as I put the radicchio on the grill, I don't know if you can see as deep into this as I can, but I kept it a little bit more around the outside, or where I'm seeing where there wasn't quite as much heat with the coals. I wanted to, because if I go directly over the really, really hot part in the center, like I have a lot of this on the edges on purpose. It's still really hot, but I can let them be on there just a few seconds longer. So they actually wilt a little bit as opposed to just a quick charcoal on the outside.
Yeah, and if you were using, like you have in the other big green egg, the 2-zone environment, This is where you could get the direct heat and get it wilted and charred really quick and move it over and still roast it. So a couple other questions. So one directed at the two of you. Are the vegetable recipes that you're cooking tonight in your cookbook season?
They are. Jessica, are you able to put up a link to that? So we're going to have someone put up a link on there so you guys can see the link to the cookbook. But this is what the cookbook looks like, that beautiful cookbook right there. But yeah, this Romanesco recipe is in the cookbook. And like you were saying, Chris, I mean, every recipe is broken down by seasons, obviously. And every recipe is paired with wine. And they're all, I mean, this recipe I'm making today with the Romanesco, this has 6 ingredients, 7 ingredients maybe. All really simple. I mean, there's a couple what we call aspirational recipes, but for the most part, they're approachable recipes. We wanted to make a cookbook that people actually cooked from. And we wanted it to be something that people used so much that the pages were dog-eared and dirty, and they found, their favorite recipes to make. And luckily, it's also really beautiful. So it could just sit on your coffee table.
And hopefully some red wine stains on there as well. Nice wine stains on the cookbook right there.
You can always tell the dog people when they make the dog reference right away. So
the endive recipe is not in the book, but I mean it's not really a recipe as it is just putting a little honey, balsamic, and olive oil in a bowl, and then put it on the radicchio. And I think radicchio is like bitter vegetables for most people in America is an underutilized vegetable that I think you'll probably start to see more of. The key to all of cooking for us is all about balance. Our thing is trying to balance the flavors with salt, fat, and acid, basically. And a lot of times it's the wine that kind of ties it all together. So again, like for us cooking at a winery, it's trying to have balanced flavors that don't overpower the wine and that they complement each other. And, kind of some is better with all the parts that we have going here. So, okay, we got bitter. We also have peppery. So what are we going to do because we have this bitter vegetable? Well, we added a little bit of sugar. We added acid to it. But the other thing we're going to add is blue cheese. So we're going to add some funk, that blue cheese has, and some richness. And Tracey made this blue cheese today. And this recipe is in the book. This is in the book.
We call it a blue cheese dressing in quotes because don't get me wrong, you could dip lettuce in this, but it's nice and thick on purpose. So this can be used as a sauce. We love this. We have a steak sandwich recipe, a tri-tip sandwich recipe in the cookbook that this goes on it with watercress. But this is just one of those, like, you make a batch of this, you're going to find yourself dipping vegetables in it, putting it on.
I'll take the leaves of the endive and just spoon into that blue cheese dressing all day long.
Again, what you're doing there is you're balancing in that bitter with richness and salt. Blue cheese has salty and blue cheese has
it's the same thing with when you're doing really high fatty foods and a nice strong Cabernet. You've got that acid that breaks through that fat. So it's the same thing. I've got one very specific Big Green Egg question when we were talking about the felt rings earlier. I just want to answer this. They asked, is the smoke coming out the side of your Big Green Egg a sign your felt needs to be, or the gaskets need to replace? Yes and no. So it's one of two things. The gaskets may need to be replaced, and that's why the smoke is coming out. But more likely than not, you need to readjust the bands that hold the top of your Big Green Egg and the bottom of your Big Green Egg so they sit flush. If they're off by just 2 millimeters, you'll have enough of an air gap that releases some of that, the air and the heat from inside, which is that smoke. So you could tell if you need new felt when you close your Big Green Egg and it makes a loud clunk as opposed to a soft landing, and you look at the felt line and it's very thin and almost gone. If you don't have either of those two things, it's most likely you just need to make band adjustments. Very simple. Reach out to @TheBarbecueBuddha on Instagram or on all the social media channels. Send me a message and I'll help you out with this offline.
Okay, so what do you want to do? You want to slice steak first, or do you want me to finish this?
Let's finish the salad over here. Any other questions, or are we ready to kind of?
We have no other questions in at the moment, so slice away, my friends.
All right.
So you guys, are we okay? Can you see everything here? Right? Maybe if I play it right here? Yeah? Okay.
The camera's a little far away, but I can see you, yeah.
I can come this way.
Sean, maybe
Can we go right here? Let's go from the side view here. Let me close this. We'll hit up a side view. Perfect. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's getting better. That looks great.
Okay.
Yep.
So I've got my roasted Romanesco, and this is the other really great thing about roasting is you get some sides that have that crispy kind of, caramelized color, and then the other side that still has that beautiful, green and yellow from the Romanesco. So that's part of what makes this dish so appealing is right from the start, you get this beautiful color. And it's really simple, right? Next what I do is I'm going to add some dry cured black olives, which are saltier versus briny. They have a little bit more of a salt, a stronger salt flavor.
But they almost have like a fruit flavor when they're dry cured like that. And it's honestly one of the easiest ways to cure olive. A lot of olives take a lot of work. They're so bitter. I remember when I first started working here almost 18 years ago, one of the chefs took me on a tour of the garden and he's like, "Oh, have you ever tried a fresh olive?" And, I hadn't. So he handed me one. And then I was like, wow, I don't know if I like this guy very much because it is the most bitter thing you will ever taste in your life. Yeah. And usually you cure it with salt or with lye and you change the water every day for weeks. But with the dry cured black ones, you just basically toss them in salt. And what we do in the kitchen is toss them in salt, put them in a cryovac bag, take that air out. And then we just put it in a cool, dark place for a couple months till it pulls all that bitterness out. And then we rinse them and use them. But they really get this really bright fruit flavor, as well as salt for sure.
Is it almost like you would use a preserved lemon in that way?
Exactly. Yeah. You're adding, it's basically becomes a seasoning method.
Exactly.
You're adding flavor, but in this dish, the salt element, a lot of it is going to be from that black olive.
Yeah.
And a little bit of acid. So you're hitting two of the four things, the acid and the salt.
Let's talk about acid in this because the next thing I'm going to add is blood oranges, which again, are beautiful. And it's just starting to get to be citrus season. So this is the time of year where you're going to see things like blood oranges, Meyer lemons. And we like to capitalize on that because it's so flavorful and beautiful. But that same thing. So now you've got some acid, also this beautiful fruit flavor. So the contrast that you're getting here from the olive and the orange together, it's one of those like very natural combinations. And then what I'm going to do is some fresh horseradish and just grate some fresh horseradish right over the top of this. So now I've got a little bit of heat going on, but it's not spicy heat, right? It's a different kind of heat. So think about all the things that are happening here. You've got sweet, you've got salty, you've got briny, you've got heat. There's a lot happening. And then you've got this fresh vegetable that has enough, I call it structure, but really the Romanesco, has enough going on that it's going to hold up to all these flavors and really give it the, give it the vessel and this nice sweetness. Finish with a couple of fresh leaves.
That dish that you just composed and described would pair perfectly with that incredibly fatty, delicious gold grade prime rib that you just grilled. I mean, the flavor combination between those two. What wine are you going to pair with this? Because now I'm virtually mentally having this meal with you, and I'm really bummed that I made the grit dish tonight. I should have made something more. Yeah, it was delicious. The maitake mushrooms were awesome, but now I'm like feeling I need steak, blue cheese, and endive. It's crazy.
I mean, you could definitely go the Chardonnay route here. I think, what do we do in the book? Is it Pinot Gris or Viognier?
I think that we maybe did Pinot Gris in the book with this, but again, I think that a Chardonnay with a little bit more acid would go great with this.
And that's one thing, like, traditional prime rib, you have a fatty sauce and you have fatty mashed potatoes and it's kind of over the top. And, to me, you don't need all that. And it's having, nothing else that we're serving today other than blue cheese, and that's just a dressing you add a little bit. We're not adding a lot of other fat. Like everything else is pretty fresh and has nice brightness. So we're not putting rich on rich, like throwing some not to say anything's wrong with mashed potatoes.
No, mashed potatoes and prime rib.
No, but
classic. But, sometimes it's nice to mix it up a little bit and have some different textures and different flavors and some brightness.
Yeah. Do you want to think about slicing that?
There's a question for you. Is there a substitute for dry cured black olives?
Kalamata olives are a little bit more readily available. But if you are near a Whole Foods, I think these days Whole Foods markets or any kind of specialty market has dry cured black olives. They tend to have them like in the deli section where you can, it's like more of a does self-serve even exist right now? Yeah. But so in that kind of area where you can get more of a specialty olive, but Kalamatas are great. what you need.
Right.
Can you grab that camera just for a second? We'll get a zoom in.
So Justin's going to go ahead and slice this steak right here, and then we'll be ready to pull prime rib. Maybe.
Yeah, we're pretty close on the prime rib. Chris, I'm sitting at 113 now, so I think we're going to be pretty darn close.
Oh man, look at that! Awesome.
Yeah. So over here, if we want to have a look at this one, you can actually see where that beef was resting. You know, I got those juices from the meat, and I also have, you can see that's welted just a little bit, and mostly just the top. You know, some of the arugula still looks really good. All that juice from the steaks right there, and now I have this nice juice coming off the radicchio that Tracey grilled, and we're just going to swing around to the front and slice this steak and put it back on there. So now,
Justin, while you're slicing that, one more question came in, if I may. For cooking a full prime rib, how long would you cook it, and what seasonings would you use? What temp would you use on the big green egg?
So yesterday when I did my test with your reverse sear method, which is, you know, different than the way Tracey and I were trained in, you know, traditional kitchens, was usually we go on a prime rib in the oven, you know, if you're doing it high heat to start, and then low and slow. And it you know, it's a pretty good way to do it. I tried your method yesterday with the reverse sear, which I know is really trendy right now, and I was really pleased with it. It was fun and something different, and it really showed well on the meat through there. Yesterday, we had a little thinner cut, and it was probably about 8.8 pounds, and I had it just under 300 for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Right.
And then I came out here, and the last 10 minutes, I just opened the green egg wide open, full throttle on the top and the bottom, and it blasted within 4 minutes.
It was fast.
It was up to 700 degrees, and we just let that just sear on the outside. And then we let it rest for about 15 minutes, and we went and poured some Cabernet in the kitchen and invited all our friends from the tasting room in there. And we just sliced that bad boy up, and everybody got a plate and a glass of cab, and life was good yesterday.
Not a bad day.
So.
But
Are you all still doing tastings in the tasting room? Are you all still doing tastings in the tasting room right now?
Outside only here in Cenami. We've been
that horrible 60-degree weather that you have to suffer through.
I don't know. I think we should show the sunset.
Right. It's like the sky is
pretty gorgeous.
We're gonna have to flip one camera around before we slice this beef, and you're gonna see our sunset over the walnut orchard here. Sorry.
So I'm not a complaining person. I love life. I love what I do, and I love things like this.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna complain.
As well.
Yeah.
They should have flown me out there to be with you. I should be there with you in Sonoma right at this moment.
So to answer your question, Chris, the state is open. We've been open. We are very fortunate to have a very large outdoor area. So we've been able to host guests here with more than the amount of space between. Just everybody's really safe, and I think that everyone's really happy to be able to come here and enjoy some wine. And we do wine and food pairings every day as well. So it's a great spot for, I think, you know, people are itching to be out and doing something, but they want to feel safe while they're doing it. And so like I said, we're very fortunate to have that space and to offer that. So we're happy to be here. We're here every day right now.
All right,
that's awesome.
So
That's
I'm gonna
just great.
slice this beautiful steak here, and Chris, we're talking about this. Does Snake River sell the decal rolls to the public, or was that just a restaurant thing, or is that something you can buy on the website?
No, they do. The ribeye, the ribeye cap. They absolutely do. They come and they'll either sell it in one of two ways. It's cryovac with the whole ribeye cap in one piece, or they'll do it like a fillet style where they'll cut the strips off of individual ribeyes and tie it up, where you could do that. But yeah, it's amazing.
So what we're talking about is the ribeye cap here, and you know, when you eat a prime rib, that's the best spot right there. I mean, that's the really fatty, pour a big Cabernet and enjoy. And Snake River will sell this part. It's called the rib cap or decal cap. And that's a hard part about, you know, sharing a ribeye with somebody, or somebody. It's good to share a ribeye with somebody that doesn't know much about ribeye, because, you know, I could cut it like that, and, you know, but that wouldn't go over on Tracey, you know. I'd have to cut it like that. So we're just going to give it a couple of slices and see how we did here.
Yeah. They're two distinct muscles on the ribeye. If I remember correctly with my anatomy, the ribeye is from rib 6 to 12 on the cow, and they're two muscles. And the reason why it's called ribeye is that the latimus dorsi, I believe, is the internal muscle, and that's the ribeye. That's the eye of the ribeye. And then the spinalis dorsi is the out, or what you just called the deckle calf. So those two muscles come together in perfect harmony, whether it's bone in or bone out. And look at that. You nailed that, Tracey. That is beautifully cooked.
You know.
And that's a bite right
Perfect.
there. That's the chef's bite. You know, that probably wouldn't even make it to the table. That bite right there never leaves the kitchen. So
Yeah.
sorry to say.
The deckle, what deckle? There's no deckle here.
Yeah, nice.
All the good bites end up in the kitchen. So make sure you're friends with the chef. So we're going to just put that over the arugula there. And then we could give it a little drizzle of some blue cheese on there. And then
olive oil first? Or?
Yeah, we can do a little olive oil.
I like to drizzle a little bit of olive oil over the steak. It's good.
Don't forget that finishing salt, Tracey.
Nope, I got it right here.
Yeah, so this one we like for like prime rib and things like that. And that's one of the main things I think that, you know, you go to a restaurant and you're like, oh, what's that pop? What's that texture? You know, everything's so well seasoned. And then a lot of times what the chef does right before it goes to your table is they sprinkle a little salt with some texture. Nice little pop on it. And crunch. And it's not a super salty salt. Actually, Buttercup, our pastry chef, who's amazing. And if you watch the Food Network, watch him this Sunday night on Candyland. He's competing and he keeps winning. And he's been pretty cocky since he got back. So I'm thinking he might have done okay. But he'll put this up. He'll put this on the bottom of his chocolate truffle. So most people you see, they'll put the salt on the top, but Buttercup likes to have it on the bottom. So when you put it on your tongue, you get that salt, it starts to dissolve, and then you get that crunch. And, you know, something about caramel and chocolate and salt that's just so amazing. So Tracey's going to give that a little bit of her famous blue cheese. And this is from Point Reyes in Tamales Bay, one of our favorite local cheese purveyors. They sell it all over the country, and they do some
Justin,
stuff. Yeah.
Another quick question from the people out there watching. The arugula that was wilted that you put the steak on, did you dress that with anything else, or did it just have the juices from the steak?
Me too, because it's going to dress with, you know, here, a little bit of that olive oil just dripped on it. The acid and from the balsamic and honey and stuff is drizzled under there. And all those juice from the meat, basically, you don't really need to do much.
Got it. So you didn't dress it with anything other than the other components on this dish. Okay.
Yeah, and then mostly it's just that beautiful beef juices that are welting it. And that you don't even really need a vinaigrette for this.
Yeah.
What do you think?
All right, Chris, I'm out.
That would be a great band name. Beautiful Beef Juices. You know, tonight at the Bayou.
All right, Chris. Now we're gonna come over here. We're gonna take a quick peek in this egg. I don't even have to do the final sear on it because I've been rolling it pretty hard over here. But I'm sitting at one. If this thing were a rest, it would probably be perfect. We're probably not gonna have time for the rest, so we'll give you a slice. But let's go ahead and give this a burp over here and have Sean swing over. This way.
I'm leaning in there, Justin. I want to see. I'm getting a close up.
All right, we are getting a little dark out here, so we're gonna move a couple lights over here, and then I'm gonna give it a little burp there. It's
looking good on this end, Justin. Ooh.
Look at that.
That looks delicious.
I think I'm gonna go ahead and pull it. So and that's another thing. I don't think we talked about this. This internal thermometer is your friend. You know, we put it in, and when we started, it was at 50 degrees. We let it sit out a little bit. But usually, you know, if you're coming straight out of the fridge, you're probably coming out at 40 degrees.
Right. Beautiful job, people. You did a great job with that. That looks beautiful.
Doesn't that look nice?
So yeah, we got lucky there, and then, that's the thing. It's cooking. Something was different today, and I missed it by a couple minutes. But what did I do? I turned the heat up, got it cooking, and I think it looks like a beautiful cut of meat there. And
well, that's the beautiful thing about cooking. I mean, I always tell people, you write recipes, and the recipes work for you in that time, in that environment, that altitude, that oven, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just an outline. Cooking is much more organic than that. So this is a great example of, recovery done right. You went to go do something with your family. That's what always happens. The temperature dipped a little bit. It's not the end of everything. You adjusted, and look at what a beautiful piece of meat that you cooked right there. Just a great job.
Chris, I wish Tracey's going to invent smell-o-vision, she keeps telling me, but it hasn't happened yet, even though she's had most of this 2020 to work on it. But I wish you could smell this right now. I mean, it just makes your mouth water. And again, that was just salt on meat. And, if you like pepper, put pepper on it. It's a roadmap. That's what a recipe is. And you can go different directions once you're on the road. But yeah, for me, just salt, easy money, and some Cabernet. We'll slice this up and, put a little blue cheese on it. The great thing about prime rib is the leftovers. A good prime rib sandwich for me is one of the best things in the world, whether it be a French dip, or I actually like it with a little bit of arugula. And we make a red wine braised cabbage that we put on this little slider. Put some, shaved meat on there. Prime rib,
crusty bread. A
lot of times tacos, is one of my favorites, but that's a great thing. Buy a little extra prime rib. If you're going to spend the time doing it, have some leftover and come up with something cool, play around with it.
And right now is the perfect time, because if you enter the giveaway and you don't win, you still have plenty of time to order one of these prime ribs from Snake River Farm. So right now is the optimal time. If you're motivated and this is what you want to do for Christmas Eve, Christmas dinner, whatever you celebrate, order now and get it in your house. It comes, unless you get the dry age products from Snake River Farms, it comes frozen, and you could defrost it at your leisure when you're ready to cook.
So I'm going to also tell you about one of my favorite cuts that we've been using for a couple of years. And I shouldn't do this because I feel like every time a cut gets out there, it gets harder to get and it gets expensive. But we've been liking the Culotte steak. And I think that is one of my favorite steaks right now. It's used a lot in Argentina and Brazil. And if you go to a Brazilian restaurant, you see the meat on the sticks, when they come.
Picanha, yeah.
Yeah, picanha. And they wrap that around it. And it's just such an amazing cut. And we've had it consistently for probably 3 years on our wine and food pairing, on and off when we have beef. And people are just blown away. And you know what they ask? They say, what do you do this meat? And I say, you know what? I put salt on it. I seared it in the pan. I put it in for 8 minutes at 450 degrees. And they're like, that's one of the best steaks I've ever had. And if you're on their website and you see it on there, play around with that cut. It's a fun one. It comes in probably about a 5 pound.
Yeah, it's maybe 5 or 6
chunk,
pounds.
5 to 6 pounds.
Yeah. You can actually, I just cooked a 3 pounder the other day, so you can get some smaller cuts with that as well. But really it's a top sirloin cut, and it's a beautiful cut. It's a great thing to do with chimichurri or a nice acidic sauce to go with that.
So, Chris, we got any other questions or anything else we want to talk about with these eggs or Snake River or how was that?
I mean, there was one more question that came in about how do you store cast iron grates on the Big Green Egg. That's a challenge for everybody. Cast iron will rust if you don't take care of it. The way I personally do it is I treat it just like my cast iron pan. After I cook with the cast iron grate, I let it cool down a little bit. I scrape the crud off of there, and then I oil it, and then I let it cool down with egg, and that seasons it. The best way to keep cast iron in tip-top shape is to use it all the time, just like everything else. Don't get something nice like that and only use it once in a while. Use it all the time, and if you season it properly, it'll last. But that was the last question.
Cool.
Well, listen, we want to thank everybody for joining us and remind everyone to go sign up for this giveaway. If you're the winner, you're going to be really happy. If you want to try any of the wines, you can go to kj.com. You can purchase Seasoned Cookbook there or go directly to seasonedcookbook.com. Come visit us here in Sonoma County. All the good stuff. Don't forget about Chris's book.
Yeah.
All the things.
Yeah. Everything, the barbecue Buddha, Big Green Egg, Snake River Farm, Justin, Tracey, you guys were awesome. I look forward to meeting you one day, and hopefully after this whole COVID thing is over, I'll be out there cooking with you one day in Sonoma. I'd love to visit.
Well, and cheers. We just want to say thank you to everyone that took the time out today to join us, and you know, thanks. Happy holidays, and stay safe out there.
All right,
What?
1 second there.
You're gonna cut into it? You're gonna do it?
We're
Do
gonna
it.
see. We're
Okay,
gonna see
do
where
it.
we end up. So that's pulled at 118.
All right, let's see this thing.
Honestly, it needs 10 minutes to rest.
Yeah.
But,
We're not gonna make everybody sit here for 10 minutes and just watch us.
questions. We're just gonna give it a little slice here.
I think you should just pick up half of it and take a bite out of one half. Just like go animal, double animal style. Look at that. End-to-end pink. You killed it, dude.
So I will say yesterday when I got that nice lower temp, I had a little bit less of this gray. And that's the thing I liked about the reverse sear. I mean, I don't know. I think now that we have 2 eggs, Tracey and I are going to battle reverse sear against the beginning sear and see where we end up. And
well, the way I like to think about reverse sear is it's like the poor person's sous vide, right? Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing as the sous vide technique if you think about it. So,
cool. Well, all
right.
Cheers,
well, look,
everybody.
Thank you all. Happy holidays, everybody. Happy holidays. Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Cheers.